Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for your digital marketing webinar. Today's webinar is called Fix the Basics. So we're going to look at some fairly basic digital marketing tactics and some things that you can perhaps update or correct within your business. Now, today's webinar is co-hosted by Australia's Southwest Tourism. So thank you very much to Australia's Southwest Tourism for organising this, but we're also part of the ASBAS, so the Australian Small Business Advisory Services program that has allowed us to present the webinar today. It is all tailored around tourism, so if you are a tourism business and you're online, fantastic, you'll get a lot out of it. I think there are a couple of sort of tourism businesses that may not have some of the tourism elements that we talk about, but that's okay. I am going to just ask Annabelle Owen from Australia's Southwest Tourism to have a quick chat now. Annabelle is the Destination Marketing and Communications Specialist for Australia's Southwest, some of which you might know as part of your membership. So thanks for joining us today, Annabelle, and I'll hand over to you now to just have a chat and to welcome everybody.
Thank you, Kristy, and yes, welcome everybody to the webinar today. We are thrilled to be partnering with ASBAS and Kristy to co-host this webinar for you today. I just wanted to jump on quickly and say welcome, and also to let you know a little bit about my role at Australia's Southwest. So as Kristy mentioned, I'm the Destination Marketing and Communications Specialist here at ASW, and my background really is in digital marketing. I worked in an agency in Melbourne and delivered some digital marketing for a few big brands over there. And at ASW, I'm in charge of our social media and all of our marketing and campaigns to consumers. So if you need anything in your business as a member, you can reach out to me and we can workshop that together. So we're always here to support you and help you get the best out of your membership with us. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me on my email, which is annabelle.owen@australiassouthwest.com anytime. And with that, I will leave you in Kristy's capable hands to learn a little bit more about digital marketing. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Annabelle. And that's a fantastic benefit of your membership. So hopefully you make use of Annabelle's knowledge and experience. Just with the webinar today, it is designed to be interactive. So please use the Q&A functionality to ask questions at any time. My background is very much in tourism and the marketing space. So I have a business, 180 Marketing, and I focus on strategic marketing for tourism businesses, as well as have my own tourism business. So hopefully you can draw on that experience and pop those questions in at any time. We'll also have a bit of time at the end to ask questions. We've got a lot to get through today, but keep in mind this recording, this webinar will be recorded and you'll get an email with the link to the recording. So don't stress too much if you feel like, we're going a bit quick or there's something that you missed. Hopefully you'll be able to watch that recording or even share it with others in your team. So just to get started, what we're going to go over today, first of all, we're going to talk about the key components of online marketing and some must-dos for your business. And that will relate to your website, to online business listings, to your SEO, your search engine optimization, SEM, your search engine marketing, and also social media. So like I said, there is a huge amount to get through in a short 1 hour session. But first of all, before we get into some of the things that you have to be doing, the reasons that we're focusing a webinar on online marketing are because it has such huge benefits. So first of all, your consumers or your customers, particularly in the tourism industry, will use the internet to search and to find businesses and do a lot of research to plan their trip or their itinerary. So they might look at the internet just to find your contact details. It could be to compare your tourism business with other products and services that are available, or they may want to transact and actually purchase. So online marketing is 24/7, which is hugely advantageous, particularly in the tourism industry. And hopefully when borders open, we've got people coming from all over the world. It's low cost, or it can be low cost, but extremely effective. Obviously, it's extremely measurable as well, and the results are immediately available. So we don't have to do advertising and then wait, a few weeks and hope the phone rings. We can track what we're doing pretty much immediately. Another huge benefit is that you can specifically reach your target market. You obviously have to know who your target market is. And that we will talk a lot about that in another webinar that we're having as part of this series. So hopefully you've registered for our strategic marketing webinar as well, because that's where we'll really go into target market. But once you know who your target market is, you're able to accurately reach them. So you're not wasting any marketing spend. You're going straight to who your target audience is. Also, you can then use social and use a lot of other channels to really build those lasting relationships with your customers. So huge online benefits. And hopefully you are online already, and we can use the webinar today to just really expand on what you're doing and hopefully improve. If you're not online, there is something at a very bare minimum that we would recommend you do, and that is to be part of the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. So what the ATDW, or Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, is, it's a national tourism marketing platform. So there's over 90,000 small and medium-sized businesses that are part of this platform, as well as destinations. So the goal is to support Australian tourism businesses to really expand their reach and promote your business and attract essentially more online traffic. So you create an ATDW listing via their online database, and then that feeds out to, I think it's, I don't know that latest stat, but it's something like 130 different websites. The most important one, I believe, in Western Australia is that it feeds out directly to westaustralia.com. Now, to be part of westaustralia.com, even though you can sign up at ATDW, you do have to be an accredited tourism business. So that's just a bit of a quality assurance that West Australia or Tourism WA have as well. So once you're listed with ATDW, you also feed out to australia.com, and there's a huge range of other businesses that directly link into this, as well as visitor centres as well. So keep that in mind. Make sure that your content is listed on there, and also that you refresh it regularly. So we've got a bit of a checklist from an ATDW perspective. Obviously get that set up. Once your content is set up, it's not just a set and a forget thing. You need to continually update it, because it feeds out to so many different websites. You absolutely have to make sure that if you've got new images, new products, new descriptions, it goes onto ATDW first. Also your contact details, make sure that all of that is up to date, email address, website, phone number, all of that side of things. Also, like I said, images are really important here. If you do get new imagery, update it, but make sure that your images are the top, your excellent images, because they're feeding out to so many different organizations. So good quality, large images, they're absolutely worth the investment. Also your product rates. Annually, your rates may change. It could even be more regularly than that. Make sure that those rates are updated on here. You want to make it as easy as possible for customers to really decide and then book your product. You don't want to be confusing them with rates that are incorrect on ATDW and then correct elsewhere. So if you were to do no other advertising whatsoever from an online perspective, you can at the very least have your web listing on ATDW. So I highly recommend, if you don't already have that set up. Also, if you need more information on getting it set up, Tourism Council provide more info on getting set up on ATDW, but the ATDW website and their support team are really helpful as well. All right, so assuming you do have ATDW set up and you've got a website, obviously the website should probably be core of your marketing activity. It's only part of the strategy though. Your potential customers need to be able to find that website, and you need to be able to actively engage with current and future customers online. So website design is hugely important. Now, a quote from Steve Jobs is that design is not just what it looks like and feels like, it's how it works. So keep that in mind. We'll talk about the technical aspects of that and when you might need a web developer. But from a design perspective, obviously, first and foremost, you need to know the purpose of your website. You need to know what your user wants from your website. Is it purely just to find your contact details, or is it that they want to actually transact? Now, there's some pretty impressive stats when it comes to tourism and bookability, I should say. And people are, I think it's something like 70% more likely to actually purchase through your company if they can book online. So think about that. And when we talk about catering to the needs of the user, if the user does actually need to make bookings, keep that in mind. You need to look at that from a technical perspective. So large hero images, obviously, communication, just a step backwards, being able to get information quickly and easily is hugely important. You want your user to be able to navigate through the website and that it flows correctly. Images are hugely important. Make sure that they position your brand correctly, that they're professional, but they're true to your product. The other key thing with images is that they have to speak to your target market. So think about who your target market is. Do the images relate, or can your target market relate to the images that you see? And now I see this all the time, particularly with tourism businesses, in that you might have, you might have got a photo shoot, for example, and you've got these amazing images of rooms, but there's nobody in them, or there's a restaurant and it's completely empty. So just think about when, as consumers, we like to be able to relate to what we see. So we like to imagine ourselves in the restaurant or in the room or whatever that might be. So you really need people enjoying your product or experience as part of the images. They also need to be, in terms of your target market, and like I said, that's our strategic marketing webinar where we'll go into that, but your images need to be that of your target market. So if your market is an older demographic, then the people in your images need to be an older demographic, because what we do as consumers, we'll go onto a website, we'll have a look, and if we like what we see and we can imagine ourselves in that, then we're more likely to purchase. If I'm an older couple that want to go for a nice quiet getaway and I see images of families and young kids, it's obviously going to deter me a little bit. So you have to speak directly to your target market. First of all, knowing who your target market is the key thing. In terms of fonts, they need to be easy to read. Make sure that the size is large enough, and there's some basic recommendations around what size they should be. But again, this has to be in line with your target market and making sure that the fonts are appropriate for them. They're readable. Colours then tie into that as well. Do the colours work with each other? Are the colours in line with your branding, and do they suit your audience? Navigation is important. So people need to be able to move around the website, but need to be able to take action as and when is necessary. So are there book now buttons? Is there an easy contact us button? Is your phone number clickable, for example, so that if they're just trying to get you while they're on the road, knowing that your market may very well be traveling at the time that they go to book you? To think about those sort of elements, but navigation is really moving around your website. In terms of the key information, an S pattern, so left to right and then top to bottom, is generally how we read. So that is also really important, that your website sort of flows in that way. Now, your load time is really important, but this is important obviously to a user, but also from a search engine optimization or an SEO perspective. So Google is going to rank your website better based on a number of factors, and one of them is load time. So that load time has to be really quick, because we're very impatient. So keep that in mind. Yes, important for the user as well as Google. Now, mobile friendly is absolutely crucial. The experts say to build your website for mobile first and then worry about what it looks like on a desktop later. And that's really because the majority of people are searching things online on a device, whether that's an iPad or an iPhone or any other kind of smartphone. So it's really important that you consider that mobile friendly, and essentially what we build now is a responsive website. A responsive website changes its shape as depending on the device that it's on, but I'll show you a little bit more of that on the technology side of things. Sorry, I'm losing my words. All right, now in terms of if you do need to pay for a web developer, now being that your website is your 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week salesperson, I would highly recommend that you put a lot of time and effort into it to make sure that it is up to scratch. And that may very well, and in most cases will mean contracting a web developer. Costs can completely vary depending on functionality. You might be able to build a website for $5,000. You might it might be $40,000, really depending on exactly what functionality and the size and scope of your website. But as and when you're choosing a web developer, have a look at their past projects. So what projects have they been involved in the past, and have a look at their work. Go onto those websites. Does it appeal to your style, your design? They will obviously design individually, but have a look at their functionality and the technical side of things as well. Also understand their level of expertise. How long have they been building websites? How many websites have they built? Are they experienced from a web development perspective? Have they done things like integrated with a booking engine before? So you could use Resdy, you could use Customly, you could use a range of different tourism-based booking engines. Making sure that they understand how to integrate with your website is really important. Also, when you're choosing a web developer, it's really important that the process is transparent, so that you understand exactly what the timeframes are, and they're very clear on what they're delivering. So full transparency is recommended, particularly when it comes to timeframes. So web development can really blow out from a time perspective. So make sure that you understand exactly what is being delivered on what sort of time schedule is really important and at what cost. Now, if you have a developer that you can engage with face-to-face, I think it's hugely advantageous. Even if it's only for 1 or 2 meetings, it's really important that you're able to get in front of them, show them what you like, have that connection with them so that they can understand you better. As you know, from a communications perspective, if you're not able to see someone face to face or hear them talk, even if it's purely by email, things can get missed and misinterpreted as well. So if you can engage with them face to face, fantastic, or even have meetings like this where you can see each other, talk through situations. When you do get a developer, if you're happy with their past projects, how experienced they are, they've explained the process to you, make sure that you've agreed on a price and that you have full understanding of exactly what that price includes. So is it a certain number of pages, what functionality, how many revisions can you have? So they might do a design, you might not be happy with it. Does that price include revising that design? And if so, how many times? The last tip I have, from a web development perspective, is to make sure that you build in a CMS. It's really important that you have a content management system that you're able to log into, and that almost everything should be editable by you, or as much of the content as possible. So they say that your website should be as quickly editable as your social media. So if you've got a new image, you should be able to put it on your website straight away. If you've got a change in product or price or information, you should be able to update that website straight away. So keep that in mind. That's really, really important. And having access to your own content management system means that you should be able to do that. So as much of your website as you can edit, the better. You don't want to be waiting for developers and turnaround times and that kind of thing, and that be limiting you from reaching out to or communicating with your clients. Now, in terms of content on your website, quality content is really important for both SEO, but also for converting people who may just be at the research stages into booking. So it has to talk to your target audience. It has to be original, so we're not plagiarizing content from anywhere else or repeating content on multiple pages. Each page needs to have original content. It should be succinct and to the point. So keep in mind, we talk with fonts, we talk with headings and heading sizes. We also talk with images, and we talk with bullet points, that kind of thing. So as much as you can break up the content as possible is a lot better for people to be able to digest that content. Being succinct when you do have paragraphs is really important. Also make sure that you proofread it 1,000,000 times, because spelling mistakes are unprofessional, but they can also result in you missing out on SEO if you spell accommodation wrong, for example. When Google crawls a website and determines how well it ranks, or other search engines for that matter, they'll be picking up on incorrect spelling of words. So that content and quality content is really important. Functionality and accessibility is really important. Now, consistency with your headings. Like I said, heading sizes really tell part of a story. So an H1 heading has a meaning from an SEO perspective. H2, H3, so the bigger the heading, it's a H1 and then it goes down, but make sure they're consistent across all pages. I'll talk a little bit more about headings in a second as well. Internal pages of your website should be accessible in 3 clicks or less. So don't have pages that are really well hidden underneath pages and pages and pages. So think about that. If you can go to your homepage, go to accommodation, go to your 2-bedroom apartment, that's 1, 2, 3. So you don't want any more clicks than that to be able to get to a page. Your home link is really important. You don't have to have the word home on your home to get people back to your homepage. Your logo is the unofficial way to do that. So your logo should be clickable to take people back to your homepage. Traditional navigation makes things very easy for people. If you start getting too fancy with things, you can confuse people. It can change how it looks on different devices. So that traditional menu style navigation is nice and easy. Your call to actions absolutely have to be obvious. Like I said, your book now, your call now, what do you want the customer to do? So think about that from a web design perspective. And make sure your navigation is consistent on all pages. I actually came across one the other day where when I was on the home page, the menu looked a certain way, and then I went to subsequent pages and the menu changed. So I didn't, if I wanted to get back to a page that I'd seen on that first page, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So that consistency is really, really important. Now, technology is really important, being fully responsive, and that's what you see on your screen there, where you've got a website and it basically adapts its size and the way it's displayed depending on whatever size device it's being viewed on. So that's really important. I've mentioned being built with a content management system, and that is very important from your perspective to be able to update it and keep that content as regularly updated and as accurate as possible. Your online bookability is crucial, and having reliable hosting. So the last thing you want is to have a great website, the images are fantastic, everything looks amazing, but nobody can get on it because your hosting is down. So we'd recommend hosting somewhere locally in terms of Australian hosting. And I've made that mistake before with my first business. I hosted with a web host company in America, and it only cost me $2 a year or something amazing like that. But I think my website was down more than it was up. So you learn these things very quickly, but reliable hosting is really important. You don't have to host it through your web developer either. You can have that hosted for, IINet and Westnet, or those kind of people do fantastic web hosting packages that are very reliable. And if anything happens and it's down, you can quickly give them a call and find out what's going on. So having that support from a hosting perspective is really important too. All right, so that's your web design. Now we're going to look at SEO, so how your website ranks. We've used the term SEO a couple of times, but you may or may not know what it is, sorry. But SEO stands for search engine optimization. Very simply, it means the process of improving your site to increase the visibility in relevant searches. So for SEO to be effective or worth your while, you have to do your keyword research. So keyword research is basically determining what people are searching to get to your site. So I quite often will speak to people and they'll say, yeah, my website ranks really well. Fantastic. What search terms does it rank for? If you don't know what it ranks for, then you absolutely have to. If you've got an SEO person or someone that's doing your SEO for you, or even your web developer, you need to understand what keywords they're actually targeting. So what are people going to search to get to your website? There's two sides to it. There's branded search, so your business name. So if someone's searching 180 marketing, for example, and I come up, that's branded search. Great to come up under branded search, but that means someone has to already know about my business to be able to search my business name. So it's the non-branded search traffic that's where you get your new business from. So if people are searching Albany accommodation, what's coming up? Where do you rank in that? But you also need to know how many people are searching that term. So how many people search Albany accommodation versus how many people search hotels in Albany. So that's where keyword research comes into it. You need to do some research yourself. Start typing in Google a few terms. There's a recommendation that will come up, and that kind of gives you an indication of what people are searching. But there is also a fantastic tool in Google called the Google Keyword Planner tool. So that's in your AdWords account. where you can actually have a look at what the search volumes are for key search terms. So go in there, do your brainstorm of what you think people might search to get to your business. Use the Google Keyword Planner tool and prove it. So is it Albany accommodation, or is it accommodation in Albany, or any of the terms that you think people might use? So do that before you do any search engine optimization or make any changes to your website, so you can actually know where the search volumes are and then make changes based on what the best search terms are in terms of volume. Okay, so that's really important. Just keep in mind though, with SEO, good SEO is a combination of hundreds of different tactical efforts. It changes and evolves continually. So tactics that might have given you top results a few years ago, they might not be relevant today. So it's really important that you continuously fine-tune your SEO efforts. It does take time. We're going to go through a few key SEO elements shortly, but just keep in mind, whatever you change now, it might take a couple of weeks or a month before you start seeing any major results. Now, because it's constantly changing, you need to really do everything possible to keep ahead of algorithm changes, and then modify your SEO as and when there are a change. So I'd recommend following, there's the key sort of blog pages on SEO where experts will sort of make assumptions as to what they think Google might be changing if there's a change approaching, or they'll tell you what Google has changed once there's been a change. So there's two sides to SEO. There's on-page and off-page SEO. So on-page is everything that happens on your website that affects its ranking, and off-page SEO is everything that happens off your website that directs people back to your website that will affect your ranking. First of all, I'll just talk quickly about web bots and basically what their role is. So on a cycle, it could be every couple of weeks, every 3-4 weeks, your website is crawled. Now, I'm using Google as an example because that's the main search engine. There obviously are other search engines, but Google is the main one. So let's say a Google web bot will crawl your website to understand what it's about. It'll then index all of your pages in its database based on the information it finds. It'll then list your website's pages in order on its search results, depending on how strong your website is for the relevant search terms. So if your SEO is good, it will increase the visitation to your website for targeted search terms. So hopefully that makes sense. In terms of on-page SEO versus off-page SEO, we're going to very quickly go into on-page SEO quickly now. In terms of on-page, like I said, it's everything that happens on your website that affects its ranking. So readable URLs, I'll show you an example of this shortly. Internal links from various pages on your website to other pages are really important. 301 redirects are also important. So that's basically a redirection to tell the search engine bot that a URL that used to live in a certain location has moved to a new location. So have you ever been onto a website and you get the 404 error, page not found? That's what you're avoiding here. And it's really important to Google that Google doesn't send you to websites or to pages that aren't there anymore. So those redirects are really important as well. Your page load time is also important, which I touched on. It obviously impacts your customer experience, but it really impacts your SEO as well, and how Google ranks you, because it is frustrating for people to go to a web page that just takes time to load. So keep that in mind. You've then got page title tags and meta descriptions. Now that's starting to get a little bit more technical from an SEO perspective. So we're actually not going to go into that today, but we will in our strategic marketing webinar. So keep that in mind. We'll expand on some of this SEO stuff in there. So page title tags are just basically the title tag that comes up in a search engine. So in your search engine results page, and the meta description also comes up in your search engine results. Alt tags and heading tags, we're not going to get into those today either, but your alt tag is basically making sure that all of your images are named, that they're not just, and when I say named, every image that you upload is a file type. It's a file with a name, so that file has to be named. And your heading tags are your headings on each of your web pages. So a couple of things we'll get into today, the basic stuff, the more comprehensive stuff, definitely tune in for the other webinar to get into that a little bit more. But looking at URLs first, so readable URLs are really important to Google. So there's an example here where you've got Australia Southwest, would.com, I just didn't put that in there, /accommodation, for example. That's great. That tells Google that this page is obviously about Australia's Southwest accommodation. If you were to not have the right URL on that, your content management system may just randomly name pages, and so it could be australiasouthwest.com.au /?page_ID. So it's very much a code, so it has no value to you from an SEO perspective whatsoever. So make sure that they're readable, they make sense, and use your keyword research to know what to name pages as well. Internal links are really important. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see internal links, and that's where, and I've used this example because it's laid out really simply, but you can see that second paragraph there. It talks about this manager accommodation offers 8 and 9 1 and 2 bedroom guest room suites and self-contained apartments. That is an internal link. So you will be able to click on that self-contained apartments, which would take you to the self-contained apartment page. You see them further down in that last paragraph. They talk about a fully equipped function room. That would then link straight to the fully equipped function room page. So this is stuff purely just a hyperlink, very, very easy to do in your content management system, but it has huge value for Google. Now, Google is going to value or rank you better based on you making it easy for the customer. So keep that in mind. That's really, really important, that if you've got a visitor to your website, things like internal links, things like, your 301 redirects, your page load time, it all improves the customer experience, and that's what Google's after. Now, on the right-hand side of the page, you can see the 301 redirects, which I've spoken about, but you're basically saying if you've changed your URL, you want to do a redirection so that Google knows that what used to be this page is now this page. So keep that in mind, particularly if you're changing your URL. So just look at this again. If you were changing this Australia's Southwest page, so you've realized that's not the right thing to do here, so you're going to change it to accommodation, that's fine to change it, but you need to do a 301 redirect to make sure that you've told Google that you're changing it. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, in terms of off-page SEO, off-page SEO is also at times called off-site SEO. So this refers to actions that are taken outside of your own website that impact your rankings within search engine results pages. So off-page or off-site optimization really should make up the majority of your SEO strategy. It'll really help to build the credibility of your website, and that's the key reason why. So you want your website to rank above others with similar messages. So to do it, you just have to build your website's authority. So link building is a really good way to do that. So link building refers to the process of getting external pages to link to a page on your website. So building links can be complicated. They can be time consuming. Not all links are sort of equal in that sense. So a link from an authoritative website has a greater impact on search engine results than a link from a newly built or a low quality website. So think about your listing on the Australia's Southwest Tourism page. If there's a link to your website there, obviously Australia's Southwest Tourism is very authoritative because it's a mega site and it's all focused on the Australia's Southwest tourism, accommodation, attractions, events, that kind of thing. There would be a lot of other sites that link to that page. Therefore, your listing on that page is hugely valuable. Same as westaustralia.com, which is a very good reason to get onto your ATDW listing. So just as an analogy, thinking about if you were seeking some legal advice for your business, if you were reaching out for advice, who would you trust more, 20 strangers or 2 qualified lawyers? And that's where we talk about your links coming back to your website have to be quality, high quality, to have more weighting than a low quality site. So keep that in mind. Search engines count all the links coming into your website, but they're not counting them as equal. They'll give more weight to quality links and then they'll rank you accordingly. So if your site had 100 poor quality links and your competitor has 15 good quality links, chances are that your competitor will rank higher than you in that sense. Also keep in mind that Google's become very, very good at spotting a scam. So your quality link has to be a real link. Previously, and in probably, let's say 5 years ago, maybe more, you could buy links. So you could say $500 and I'll get 10,000 links. And then all these random websites that weren't relative to you at all, relevant to you at all, would link back to your website. Google has now very much gotten rid of that. So they do spot scam, and then you'll get in lots of trouble for doing stuff like that. So to get a good quality link, it should really come from a trusted and a reputable site, or a site that's related to your type of business. Generally, they're hard to come by and require some kind of human intervention to implement. So think about things like membership, your Australia Southwest Tourism membership. That would give you a listing on their website. You're paying for the membership. You have to go back and forth with the office, provide them your details. The link then gets established. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. You're also, a good quality link should be on a page that has content related to the content that it's being linked to. So if you're coming from a particular website and you're talking about, let's say, your tours, link directly to the tours page. Don't just go to the home page, and that then sends a bit of a stronger message. Generally, a link should add value to the reader. So whatever page it's on, they should be reading and go, all right, yep, I want to click through and read more about this business. So it should make sense, and it should be likely to be clicked. So keep that in mind. Link building is great, but it does take time, but it should make up a huge part of your SEO effort. Now, earning links from external websites is definitely the most common practice in terms of your off-page SEO strategy. But keep in mind that anything that happens off your website or away from your own website and helps your search engine ranking could be considered off-site or off-page SEO. So your social media is also really important. Now, social media sends signals. So the more interaction you have on social media, so the more engagement, likes, shares, comments, that kind of thing, and the more you're on social media engaging with your customers, that's also sending signals to Google. There could be guests. You might have people that do some guest blogging for you, making sure that they're linking back to your website, but also talking about your business. Any other linked or unlinked even brand mentions. Obviously linked is stronger, but unlinked brand messages or brand mentions help as well. And then there's influencer marketing. So keep that in mind. Influencer marketing could be part of your strategy. Now, we will also talk about that in one of the other webinars that we're doing. So keep that in mind. We'll go into a lot more detail on influencer marketing, and that's also in the strategic marketing webinar. So a few things that you can do there for your off-page SEO as well. Now, looking into some essential online business listings. So some things or some listings that I believe are absolutely crucial to your business. And this is from an SEO perspective, but also from, I guess, a best practice and being found. So Google My Business is absolutely crucial. If you don't have it set up already, make sure that you set it up. This is where you'll have your Google Places listing, you'll have your Google Plus, your Google search information, also where you'll get all your reviews as well. So chances are you might think you don't have a Google listing, but there is a very good chance that one has been established for you already. You just may not have claimed it. So make sure you go on and have a look that you've got either ownership of your Google listing, or if not, take ownership of it. Now, your regional tourism organisation is an absolutely essential business listing. Obviously, yours is Australia's Southwest Tourism. So keep that in mind. If you operate in multiple regions, there could be another regional tourism organisation that is relevant to your business. There are 5 in Western Australia, so keep that in mind. Your state tourism organisation website is crucial. That's westernaustralia.com. Now, I did mention that you have to be an accredited tourism business to be able to be listed on that website. So that's something really important to keep in mind. Once you're listed on that website, well, to get listed on that website, you do that through your ATDW listing. So make sure if you're not accredited, reach out to Tourism Council. It is a bit of a process, but it is just ensuring that you're a quality tourism business. So it's hugely beneficial for you anyway. Your visitor centre listing is also really important. So think about who your local visitor centre is, or if there's multiple, who they are, and see if they have web listings and if you can get listed through them. That would be really beneficial to you. Also, other online travel agents, so OTA websites, are important as well. Having to think about what's relevant to your business. Can you be booked through an online travel agent? And what is the scope of your business? Can you interface or integrate the booking process to get listed and have bookings feed directly through? Now, obviously, you pay a commission to be on an OTA website, but it could mean more business for you. They do a lot of advertising and marketing, sometimes in competition with your search engine results. So if someone searches, go back to the example of accommodation in Albany, you might have booking.com come up and, a range of other online travel agents. But don't be disheartened in that. Think that people will probably go on there to compare anyway. They may not book through that channel, but if you're not there, then you're not part of the comparison process. Obviously, your social media is really important, and you have your web address and your contact details on there as well. And then there's other aggregators like TripAdvisor that pull inventory from other distributors and then feed it out. So TripAdvisor have obviously their own platform, Viator, but then there's others that will feed into it as well. So make sure that you're a part of them, so that when people are doing this research, you're visible as well. So there's some essential online business listings for you. Now, going on to advertising, we're not going to go into detail on pay-per-click advertising as such, which is online advertising. I think it's fantastic. It's cost-effective. It's very immediate. It's flexible. You track it. So we're not going to go into that as such, because that is a bit of a beast to go into. But one thing I will go into in terms of a very basic, very cost-effective form of pay-per-click advertising is remarketing. So SEO ranks you organically when people search, and SEM is search engine marketing, where you can set up advertising and you pay per click based again on search results. But Google AdWords have remarketing, and done correctly, it can be so great for increasing brand awareness and influencing conversions, and generally at a very low cost. So remarketing is a pretty simple concept, and you can see by the infographic on the images on the screen. You're basically reinforcing your brand to people who have already visited your website. So you've got a prospect. Now, they could have come to your website through a search, through a brochure, through however, but somehow they've got to your website. Once they're on your website, Google tracks them, and then when they leave your site and go to another site, ads start to appear, your ads. Now, it could be ads by text, or it could be banners or pop-ups. So it's depending on how you've set it up and what sites they're actually browsing. But you would most definitely have been a recipient of remarketing at some stage. Sometimes you notice it, sometimes you don't. There are two main areas or two main forms of remarketing. There's display and there's search. So with display, your ads will appear to past visitors of your site no matter what they're searching for. So they could have gone off your website and now be on a new site. So it doesn't have to be related to your product. But a more refined approach is search remarketing that's only shown to past visitors when they're searching for a similar product. That approach is a little bit more effective because it targets people who are looking for a similar product. So they're probably comparing you against competitors. But I think depending on the size of your audience, like how many people actually hit your site, I think display remarketing is absolutely fine. It means that they've been onto your site, they've engaged with you at some level, for whatever reason they've left your site. Now, you only pay when they actually click back onto your website, and that's why it's so cost effective. So one person might see your ad, let's say 10 times, and never click it, but then they decide, or they decide to give you a call and go, yeah, I've got to get back on and book that experience or that accommodation or whatever that might be. Or they could go through a search process, finally get back to you, we'll get back to searching again, or be looking at something else and got distracted. Your ad comes up and then they go, yeah, that's right, I've got to get back on and book that. So it's hugely advantageous in that sense, and very, very cost effective. So if you're doing nothing else from a pay-per-click perspective or an online advertising perspective, absolutely set up remarketing. And sorry, before I go on, I should just say this is all just set up in your Google AdWords account. You can set it up yourself, but you can also ask for someone, a professional, to help you set it up. AdWords is a pretty simple platform, and you can absolutely go in there and set up any campaign yourself, assign budgets. I do find using a company can be better in that they'll spend your money more cost effectively. You know, they really monitor and manage the whole process, and they set up the technical side of things. But if you're just doing remarketing, there's no reason you can't set it up yourself. All right, so now we're looking at social media. So social media has made a massive impact on the tourism industry. Customers can engage with social networking sites to research trips. They can make informed decisions about their travels. They share their personal experiences of a particular, whether it's a hotel, restaurant, even an airline or a tour product. So yeah, it's huge for the tourism industry. User-generated content is seen by the online community as more credible and authentic as well. So when you're searching and you're looking at what other users are saying or what other people are saying, it's those reviews that we take quite, we take them on board and take them quite seriously. So when it comes to social media, think about channels that are accessed by your target markets. It's really, really important that you are on the channels that are accessed by your target markets. Thinking about that, and have a look at their image on the screen. At present, there are 2.7 billion people just using those platforms. So the Facebook sort of owned platforms of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. So that's absolutely huge, but there's so many more. You've just got to choose what is best for you. By knowing your target markets. You have to be where your target markets are, but make sure that you're not wasting time and energy on platforms where your target markets just aren't. So that's really important. Now, when it comes to social media, snackable content is really important, and that's if you don't want to provide lengthy stories or too much information. You want it to be easily digestible, little bite-sized pieces of information. Images are obviously, and I've said that down the bottom, it's a visual language essentially, but you do have to have a few words and a bit of a story behind that. Engagement is what you're after. You don't want, we don't want to focus on as many posts as you can do, or even I have a lot of businesses that will ask how many posts they have to do per week, or how many they should be doing. And my answer to that is always that you should never try and force posts for the sake of stats. No one sits there and goes, all right, how many posts did Coca-Cola do last week? Or, you know, even someone more relevant or local. We don't care how many you do, but when we see a post, we want to feel engaged with it, or you want your consumers to be engaged with it. So keep that in mind. Engagement is what we're after. Now, engagement, likes are obviously one thing. It's quite easy to like something and it doesn't really show much commitment. And the next level of that is comments. Obviously, people going on and commenting. At that stage, it's so important that you're there as a brand to comment back and to be part of that conversation. And the third element is shares. If people are sharing your content, it means they like it that much that they want to share it as their own to their friends, family, and potentially followers. So think about that engagement and have a look at your posts that you've done in the past on any platforms, and have a look at what's getting the most engagement, and then try and tailor your strategy around what appeals to your audience the most. You obviously need to know who your target market is to know what sort of things are going to appeal to them, but then try and test them. Try and test as in two different things. Try, test, go back, change it, try again, and see what gets the most interaction. Don't focus on the number of posts or anything like that, but do try and post as regularly as you can based on the quality content that you have. Because keeping in mind, social sends signals. So we mentioned that before when we were talking about SEO. Social media is really important from a signal perspective to make sure that your website ranks better. But you have to have that engagement to get the benefit of that signal. Also on social, make sure you're engaging with your regional tourism organisation, your state tourism organisation, and even Tourism Australia. Now, as part of this webinar series with Australia's Southwest Tourism, we do have a webinar on engaging with tourism, industry, sorry. So that will talk about engaging with Australia's Southwest, with Tourism WA and with Tourism Australia, and social media will be a part of that. So make sure you join that one if you're interested to know more on that. But keep in mind social, and I mentioned it earlier, it's very much a visual language. So we're all about images to inspire people that are relevant to your target audience that are going to get that engagement. Also, even with social media, create mobile content first. So this is where it becomes quite interesting, in that portrait orientation of an image suits all platforms, whereas a photographer, you get a photographer out in the field and they want to take landscape images of everything, or even when someone's building a website, they'll want to do landscape images of everything, whereas if you're looking at a website on your phone, it's really that portrait orientation that's more relevant. It's only when you get it on a desktop that that landscape is relevant. So really keep in mind that with your social media, I would create mobile content first. So think about Facebook being that constant companion across all 5 stages of travel as well. So these are the 5 stages of travel. So you've got experiencing, you've got dreaming, you've got researching, and you've got booking, and sharing happens within all 5 stages of that. So it's really, really important that you factor that in when you're looking at how you can engage with your customers. How can you be there when they're researching, and that comes down to your search and sending signals. How can you be there when they're booking, when they're at that booking stage? Again, do you make it easy for them to book? What do you do from a social sense to get people into that booking space? Experiencing, obviously, when they're with you, you should be encouraging them to take photos, encouraging them to share those photos with you by either tagging you in, using specific hashtags, or whatever that might be. At the dreaming phase, that sort of happens after experiencing, in some cases where they're reminiscing, or it happens before researching, where they want to go somewhere, they want to experience something, but they haven't even got to the stage where they've got a date yet, or they're serious. So think about that. Sharing happens at all, or sharing is one of the 5 stages, but sharing happens at all the other 4 stages of that booking process. So it's really important that you give it the attention that it needs. Now, that is a very quick fly through on fixing the basics of digital marketing within your business. Now, as I mentioned today, we've gone through a few different things. We've gone through your website design and layout. Obviously, Australian Tourism Data Warehouse is absolutely crucial. Look at your website design and layout, and potentially, if you need to look at a developer, look at your content, the functionality, the technology behind it, and being bookable online is absolutely crucial. Then we're going to look at how it ranks. So make sure that you understand how your website ranks and how it ranks for a range of key search terms based on the research that you've done. And then look at what you can do by way of other business listings and online business listings, which will all help your SEO anyway. Then you can go into the world of a bit of online marketing, starting with remarketing, and then potentially into AdWords and that kind of thing. And then at all times, keeping in mind your social media. So like I said, that's a bit of a fly through. As part of this series, we'll be expanding a lot more in other areas. So including strategic marketing, we'll look at working with trade, there'll be grant opportunities, product development. So there's quite a few. If you haven't seen the full list that's available through ASW, let me know, or let Australia's Southwest know, because it's definitely not too late to get on to the rest of the series of webinars. If you do want to know more, as part of the ASBAS program, you can book a one-on-one appointment with me. Now, you may or may not have received your login yet, but if you have, basically just go to my profile and there's an area where you can book a one-on-one appointment. We do it by Zoom, just like we're doing now. We can talk about any aspects of your business. We can flesh out things that we've discussed as part of this webinar series, or talk about anything and everything. So keep that in mind. That's available to you as part of this program, but I'd encourage you to get on to the rest of the series as well. Now, I'm staying online now for any questions. So if you do have anything that you want to pop into the chat or into the Q&A functionality, please drop me a line now. Thanks so much for joining us again. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you with the rest of the series that will be coming out soon. And fire away with any questions.